Do you know the price of the phone in your hand right now, the chair you're sitting on, or maybe the tea you drank today? But the real question is this: do you think those prices are real? Because I'm about to tell you something. The money system that billions of people believe to be real every single day is actually the greatest collective illusion in human history, and perhaps the most profitable lie ever told. And sitting at the top of this lie, running the world like a corporation, is an empire, the United States of America. As Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And today we're going to decode that rhyme, this recurring poem that has echoed for centuries. Because America's real business model isn't selling iPhones, producing Hollywood movies, or exporting hamburgers. America's real business model is war. But be careful. Not war in the classical sense of conquering land. This is a sophisticated war that has turned money itself into a weapon, transformed debt into the most profitable product in history, and tied the entire world into a massive pyramid scheme, a global Ponzi structure. Now open your eyes, because everything you see is very different from what you think. First, we need to understand this. What is money? Economics textbooks tell you that money is a medium of exchange, a unit of account, a store of value. Nonsense. Complete nonsense. Money is far more than that, or perhaps far less. Money, at its core, is a belief system. Yes, like a religion. That piece of paper in your hand or the numbers on your screen are nothing else. Just a promise, a claim, and a collective agreement. Think about a $100 bill. What is the real value of that paper? A few cents. But you assign it the power of $100 because you believe others will do the same. This is a chain of belief, a confidence game, and, most importantly, a controllable illusion. So who controls this illusion? This is where the story gets interesting. In 1971, Richard Nixon went on television on a Sunday evening and changed the world forever. He ended the gold standard. From that moment on, the US dollar was no longer backed by gold or any physical asset. It was backed by only one thing: the promise of the United States of America. And that was the day money truly became nothing more than a belief system. But history doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes. And this rhyme was written centuries ago. The Roman Empire did the same thing. It reduced the silver content in its coins, printed money to finance the empire, and eventually collapsed. China's Yuan dynasty printed paper money. Inflation exploded. The system collapsed. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Same story, different costumes. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes perfectly. Now, if you understand this money illusion, you can also understand America's terrifying power. Because America did something no empire in history had ever done at this scale. It turned its own currency into the world's currency. Selling oil? Dollars. Buying grain? Dollars. Weapons, technology, pharmaceuticals, all dollars. Central bank reserves? Dollars. How did this happen? After World War II, America owned 70% of the world's gold reserves and sat down at the table and said, "My currency will be the world's currency." Bretton Woods, 1944. The countries at that table signed the agreement because they had no alternative. Europe was in ruins, Japan was destroyed, the world was bleeding, and America forced that agreement through. Then in 1971, Nixon removed gold from the equation, but the system was already built. The entire world was now tied to the US dollar. And here is the critical point. America can now print unlimited money. Why? Because its debts are in its own currency. No other country can do this. If Turkey borrows in dollars, it can't print dollars to pay it back. But America prints. Do you understand how brutal this power is? This is the greatest financial Ponzi scheme in history, and America sits at the very top. And for this chain to continue, one thing is needed. The world must continue to believe in America. The world must continue to trust the dollar. And how is that trust maintained? Through fear and power. In other words, war. Now, when you hear the word war, you think of tanks, bombs, soldiers. Yes, they exist. But modern America's war is far more sophisticated. This war has three layers. The first layer, classical military power. America has the largest military budget in the world. In 2023, $877 billion, nearly 40% of global military spending. More than the next 10 countries combined. Why? Because this power protects the petrodollar system. In the 1970s, America made a deal with Saudi Arabia. Sell your oil only in dollars. In return, military protection and weapons sales. The Saudis accepted, OPEC accepted, and the world became permanently dependent on dollars to buy oil. The petrodollar was born. And whatever was necessary to protect this system was done. Iraq, Libya, Iran. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Saddam wanted to sell oil in euros in 2000, and in 2003, he was invaded. Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed African currency, and in 2011, he was killed. Coincidence? You decide. The second layer, economic war, sanctions, embargoes, removal from the SWIFT system. America's economic weapons are more effective than its bombs. Look at Russia, Iran, Venezuela. No military invasion, but their economies are devastated. How? The SWIFT system, the global interbank payment network, is under American control. If you're removed from it, you're cut off from world trade. This is like a nuclear bomb without radiation, just economic death. The third layer is the most insidious, debt. The IMF and the World Bank, supposedly development institutions, but in reality control mechanisms. When a country falls into a debt crisis, these institutions arrive with a rescue package. But there are conditions: privatization, austerity, market liberalization. In other words, selling off national assets and opening access for American corporations. John Perkins explains this in Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The mission was to indebt countries and then control them. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. The British Empire controlled India with military force. America controls the world with debt. Lower cost, less resistance, same result. Now stop and think, how can this system survive for so long? Because it's hidden in plain sight. The story they tell you is very different from the real story. Economics textbooks sell you the fairy tale of the free market, supply and demand, the invisible hand, equal opportunity for all. Ridiculous. There is no free market. There is a manipulated game. Central banks change interest rates, create money out of nothing, steer markets. What happened after the 2008 crisis? Banks should have failed. That's the rule of capitalism. Failure is punished. But no, the banks were too big to fail and were rescued. Trillions of dollars were printed and handed to them. And ordinary people? They lost their homes because the system is designed to protect the wealthy. You can call it socialism, but only for the rich. Capitalism for the poor, socialism for the rich. And let me tell you the biggest lie of all. Living without debt is good, right? Is it? America has lived debt-free for exactly 1 year in its entire history, 1835 during Andrew Jackson's presidency. And what happened? An economic depression. Because the modern economy is built on debt. If the debt system ends, the system collapses. Your credit cards, mortgages, car loans, these are what turn you into a consumer. And consumption is the engine of the economy. But here's the truth. Debt is the most profitable product in history. Banks make money without creating anything, through interest. They lend you $100,000 and take back $200,000 over 30 years. What did they produce? Nothing. Just changes in numbers. But you work for 30 years to repay that debt. Is this slavery? No, it's smarter. Voluntary slavery, because you want that house, that car, that phone. The system sells you an image of success, and you go into debt to reach it. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. In the Middle Ages, there were landowning nobles and peasants working the land. Today, there are financial institutions and debt-burdened citizens. The peasant couldn't leave the land because he'd starve. You can't leave your debt because your credit collapses and your standard of living falls. The control mechanism changed. The result is the same. So, can this system last forever? History gives us the answer. No. Every empire collapses, every Ponzi scheme ends, every bubble bursts. Rome fell, the Ottoman Empire fell, the British Empire dissolved. Is America different? No. The signs are already here. China is using the yuan in international trade. Russia is moving away from the dollar. Europe is signaling independence. BRICS countries are discussing alternative systems. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are challenging centralized money. And America's internal fractures, extreme inequality, declining social mobility, a shrinking middle class, rising polarization. The system is under stress. And history teaches us one more thing. When systems collapse, ordinary people suffer the most. The Great Depression of 1929, the 2008 financial crisis. The rich came out richer, the poor came out poorer. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes brutally. So what should you do? This is critical. Financial education is your shield for survival. Understanding the system is the only way to protect yourself from manipulation. I'm not saying make a budget, save money, avoid debt. Those matter, but they're not enough. What you really need is this. Understand the true nature of money. That it's an illusion, a power game. Understand inflation and how it silently impoverishes you. Understand how central banks work and how interest rates affect you. Know the difference between assets and liabilities. A mortgaged house is not an asset until it's paid off. See the system's tricks, manipulated inflation data, massaged unemployment numbers, growth illusions. And most importantly, take control of your own money. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, value stores outside the centralized system, volatile, risky, but free. Diversify. Don't carry all your eggs in one basket, especially if that basket is the dollar. In conclusion, you must realize this. The world you live in is very different from the story you're told. The global economy is a giant theater stage, and you are the audience, but also an extra. The game is played with your labor, your belief, your trust. America's power isn't in its military. It's in your belief in the dollar in your pocket. When that belief shakes, the system shakes. And history shows us that moment always comes. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes like poetry. And today's rhyme sounds like the late 1920s, Rome's decline, the autumn of every empire. The question is, when the next collapse comes, will you be ready? Or will you, like billions of others, stand there shocked asking, how did this happen? Because this video isn't here to sell you conspiracy theories. These are the cold realities of history, economics, and power dynamics. The records are there, the numbers are there, the patterns are there. You just have to look. And this is important. This is not a doomsday scenario. It's a wake-up call. The system is changing. The world is shifting. Power balances are moving. Where you position yourself in this change will determine your financial future. Knowledge is your weapon. Education is your shield. Awareness is your freedom. They tell you work hard to make money. I tell you understand how money works. They say trust the system. I say understand the system. They say everything is fine. I say nothing is as it seems. And most importantly, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And if you want to write the next rhyme, you must first read the previous verses. You must understand America's business model, the true nature of money, and the new forms of war. Because 21st century wars aren't won on battlefields, they're won in stock exchanges. Interest rates instead of missiles. Trade agreements instead of tanks. Algorithms instead of soldiers. And the winners of this war won't be those who carry weapons, but those who understand the system. So I ask you now, will you keep watching this game, or will you learn the rules and start playing? Decide. Because when the theater curtain falls, it's not those on stage who survive. It's those who know where the exit is. And remember, the greatest illusion is believing there is no illusion. And if this video triggered something in you, sparked a light, or at least made you think, wait, what if? Don't forget to subscribe because this story is just beginning. Hit the like button so this information reaches more people, because remember, knowledge is power, and power grows when it's shared. And leave the emoji in the comments. Let it be the sign that you see the game, that you've seen behind the curtain. Who knows, maybe this small emoji becomes the silent symbol of thousands who see the same truth. Now go, think, research, and never ever believe blindly. Not even me. Because the most dangerous form of slavery is not knowing that you are a slave. See you next time.